agenda. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, sir. Go here.
Good evening, everyone. For the City Council study session for January 12th, 2026 at 6 p.m., the City Council chambers at 111 East Maple. Welcome, everyone. We've got some exciting things to talk about this evening. So, Mrs. Reynolds, as interim city manager, could I ask you to kick off the first presentation for Nibia's presentation for the data center information presentation?
Certainly. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you were all, I believe, in attendance at the open house, this is mostly a continuation of the conversation that started at the open house today. I'd like to go ahead and ask Mark Coulter with the Nebius team to come forward as he'll be presenting the information for the evening. But again, just this is the formal presentation of some of the information that was presented earlier this afternoon and just gives the council time to enter into discussion about some of that information. So I'll pass it off to Mr. Coulter.
Thank you very much. Just double checking. Thank you very much. My name is Mark Coulter. I'm with the Rouse, Fretz, White, Goss law firm here in Kansas City, here representing Nebius, the entity about whom we're here to discuss today. So before we get started on the formal presentation, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about how we're going about this in a little bit different of a way. Traditionally on data center projects, you would not have heard from the company by now. Frankly, neither would the public. We'd probably, if we were on track for this specific project, probably wouldn't be here in front of you in a public setting or in any sort of a public setting with you all, much less an open house, until maybe June, July. The project would be completely designed. We would likely not be very open to input, much less engagement with the community. And we would present you with kind of a take it or leave it project. But one of the exciting things about this one is that is not who Nebius is. That is not how they want to run their projects. And I'm very glad to go through this presentation here today. But I just kind of wanted to level set how data centers have been done across the country. They have a reputation, earned or not, they are what they are. But one of the things that we said about from the very beginning when we were first brought on and the discussions that we've had since then is we're looking to really listen to the community, talk to the community, because we want to be a part of the community for the next 20 plus years. And so that's what this is about. Happy to go through I'll go through the presentation. I'll stop on any slide. You all have seen these in advance, so I don't want to just sit and read a PowerPoint. I'd rather get right to the questions and start the dialogue, because that's what we're here to do. Mr. Mayor, you're exactly right. This is a continuation of the open house today, or Ms. Reynolds, who I don't want to miscredit. But that's really what this is here today, for you to ask the questions on behalf of your constituents. I know that a lot of you have many, many concerns. we've had maybe one meeting prior to this, so but it's been an ongoing dialogue with city staff, and we're really here to just do what we can to show our interest, work with the community, and address any concerns that we can as best as possible. So with that, I've already gone through this. Agenda, introduction of the project. I can hit on the technical points. Like I said, we can go through this slide by slide. I can read it to you in the good old military fashion. We talk about what we're going to learn, talk about what we're learning, and then go about and talk about what we just learned. I'll try to avoid doing that. But an introduction to Nebius. We're a leading edge data center for AI. It's essentially an AI factory. We provide services that are cutting edge to users all over the globe in a number of, part of our team is rolling in now. To provide AI data center focused services to users all over the globe in a number of different industries and opportunities that are presented. I'd like to introduce the delivery team as we have it now. Obvious Nebius. We've got 2 representatives from Nebius Corporate with us. We have HKS Design, HKS Architects, a number of them. North Point Development. I think everybody in Independence in the Kansas City area is very familiar with North Point and the good work that they do. AEI affiliated engineers, they're one of our local contacts, local teams. DPR Construction is not able to be here, but they're advising Nebius on the construction for their projects globally. Rouse Frets, White Goss, Gentile Roads. I sometimes leave off the 2, but it's a long name. Obviously, we're local counsel. And then FTI Consulting has been the communications and tax advisors on the team, and it's been a fantastic team to work with. I've worked with a number of project teams throughout the metro, and this group is second to none. Why Independence? First, we already have existing services in Kansas City. The Patmos facility, the old Kansas City Star Building, as most of us will still call it. It's a great reuse of that facility, and Nebius has a presence here. They were quiet. They wanted to learn more about the area, but I think it's a great opportunity. One of the things that's different, and I kind of alluded to at the beginning, we're committed to transparency, almost as transparent as the Kansas City Star Building. That might be a step too far, but I saw it and I seized the opportunity. We want to listen and hear the community needs and continue our discussions with you all to move the project forward. I think this is one of the things that everybody is really looking to see, and that's the project site. This is out at the Eastgate Commerce Center. I believe it was rezoned industrial over 2 years ago. But speaking with my colleague Bill Moore, apparently this has been contemplated to be an industrial corridor for a long time. So one of the main concerns is sometimes data centers don't always locate in there. We specifically targeted this one for that reason. It is primed and ready to go for a development of this size and scale. Here are some of the project site and architectural developments that we presented today. We received some good feedback, and one of the things that we wanted with today and through this is we are early enough in the design phase that we can still make some of these changes. What we heard today, what we listened to today, we're going to take back. We're going to incorporate what we can and provide, again, a project that fits with the community, that reflects the community, because we want to be a part of the community. One of the things I've said early on, especially at the meetings with Nebius leadership, is I said I think we're all getting a little tired of the gray and white boxes. We want something a little different. We want something that looks good, looks like the community. So we've presented some options. We're going to take the feedback we heard today, bring it back, and the next time we're in front of you, I anticipate we will be able to highlight what we learned today and how it reflected our changes in the design of the project. Technical overviews. This is the one that everybody is very, very interested in. We plan on using a closed loop system. That is very important. The data centers from 10 years ago that your Facebook groups and everything exist on, those are the old model data centers. Those are evaporative cooling, where water goes in, evaporates, and nothing else comes out. This will be a closed loop system, filled one time at the beginning with annual refreshing. It will be demineralized water. So there is no just constantly dumping normal, regular tap water into it or river water. This will be very specifically treated water to maintain the equipment. The recurring use of 400 to 640,000 gallons a year will be for irrigation for any landscaping, wash down of equipment, restrooms for the employees, etc. That's a very, very low use. I'm not sure where it puts us, but I think, based on my last recollection, I think it's not even quite the top 50 users within the city. So it's very manageable, and we are very, very concerned to make sure that our water use is sustainable. Power. This is something I think you all can probably explain even better than I can. But the power generation is going to be provided by IPL. Their participation, again, I think everyone is probably familiar with the power plant coming online, with the investment by IPP into IPL, and that is really linchpinned by our design and by our desire to use the power. So there will be potentially some additional generation on site during a future phase that is still being evaluated. It's in the preliminary, so we will be taking into consideration what the emissions would be, what the noise would be. These were two things that we've heard a lot today. We knew we were going to hear. We were prepared for them, and so that is something that we will be studying and come back to answer to the best of our abilities once those technical requirements are due. Again, I can read the slide or I can move on. Here's a very good infographic. The typical data center,
Do you have a question?
200 to 300 million gallons. Feel free to interrupt me as well.
You're going to get to the other items on that slide?
I can go back for the emissions. Emissions on site are anticipated to be quite low. Buildings do not emit any greenhouse gases. We'll register with the EPA and any other local jurisdictions that are required of us. Everything we will do, we will comply. There are no plans to file for any special use permits, for anything like that. We plan to operate within the existing code. And happy to answer any more questions on that. Feel free to interrupt me. It will not hurt my feelings. Sound, that was another one that we heard quite a bit. The anticipated sound levels right now are 85 decibels. That's not quite full traffic, approximately the sound of regular traffic. And if this were a distribution center, you would have the rumbling diesels, you have the different delivery vehicles. Even if they used electric vehicles for individual deliveries, there would still be semis delivering the regular goods through it. So we are not looking at anything beyond what any other industrial facility or industrial park would give. And again, we are willing to commit to follow all local regulations and exceed when possible. Technical details. Where we are, the AI Factory, AI Lab, like I said, is approximately 1.4 million per building for the one-time fill-up. If you look at what a typical data center uses, the 200 to 300 million gallons a year, you can see right there that it's an outdated model that obviously people have started to push back on, and frankly, rightfully so. As the technology develops, you can see from when those were beginning to be built approximately 10 years ago till now, there's always been a significant reduction in the water usage, and we anticipate that those advancements will continue. So what we know now, hopefully in the future, will continue to go down. I don't think it'll be that drastic, but it shows the differences between what the current conception and public perception of data center water usage is and what we anticipate to do.
So on your graph there, for people who are having a hard time seeing, the giant bar is what they used to use, and the tiny little itty-bitty green bar that nobody can see, that's what your projected usage is. Is that correct?
Correct. It is much less than your average office or mixed use development. Community benefits plan. This was very important to Nebius from the first meeting I had through today, and it will continue past this. Nebius as an institution is very, very focused on increasing education, not only AI education, but supporting education in general. We've already begun discussions with some of the taxing jurisdictions, which again, if this was the traditional project, we wouldn't talk to them until June, July, August maybe. But we've already started to have those discussions. We've already outreached. We've already made the connections. And we look forward to working with them and exploring how more we can integrate with them and how we can bring what Nebius is to help the students of Independence, whether it's Independence, Fort Osage, or the metropolitan community colleges. Any questions? Somebody looked like they had a question. Sorry. One of the other things that we haven't spent much time talking about is the encouragement and freedom that Nebius gives their employees to volunteer in the community. One of the things that we've heard about quite a bit today, obviously, is the Little Blue River watershed, and we see some good opportunities globally. They have taken advantage of these types of opportunities and worked in watersheds, so this is really within the realm of what Nebius has done previously. So we look forward to partnering with any conservation groups and potentially providing them with some volunteer hours for our Nebius employees. That's very important. That goes to the core of who Nebius is. So we're looking to bring that to this project like any other project. As I already spoke about, Independence and Fort Osage School District, we're already looking at different ways that we can work with them beyond any potential pilot payments. Money's good, but integration and opportunity is just as good, frankly, in my opinion. So we're looking at STEM opportunities, maker spaces, AI literacy. My daughters are already a little bit more literate in AI than I am, and I anticipate that's just the technological curve we'll all be looking at in the future. And having this state-of-the-art facility and a flagship property in the United States. This would be Nebius's first data center fully owned and developed in the United States. And that's important because this is the one that sets the precedent for all the future projects, no matter where they are. Blue River Valley campus, that is the technological focus campus for the metropolitan community colleges. So there's a lot of opportunity there with cybersecurity, trade school opportunities for electricians. Obviously, data centers use a lot of electricians, and that's one of the things that we're looking at. How can we partner with not only MCC, but the Blue River Valley campus on providing learning opportunities for local students in the AI space, in the construction space, and in the cybersecurity space, and then extrapolate that to the greater metropolitan community college system at large. Again, it goes back to AI education, providing those opportunities to teach the workers of tomorrow about how to best use this technology as it's developed. Additionally, I've already touched on volunteerism and conservation, but safety is another priority for the company, not only because of the technical requirements for working with developments like this, but also it goes back to what I said at the very beginning. We want to be a part of the community, and part of the community is safety. So we look forward to partnering with IPD, with the fire department, see how we could do to see what we can do to provide opportunities to work with them as well. Now to the most important part, Q&A. I'm here to hear everything. If I don't have an answer, that's why our team is here. And if they don't have the answer, we're here to find out what the questions are, so we can get them, so we can take them back, research them, and bring them back to you.
Any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
at full build out, what kind of investment, as far as dollar wise, is this going to be that Nebius is going to be spending?
As was provided to the city, the construction is approximately $5.5 billion, and the CapEx on the personal equipment is very, very hard to judge because what AI chips cost now is not what they will cost in 5 years. The technology is developing. But to answer your question directly, if all costs remain static, this would be approximately around $150 billion.
Okay, so do you plan on using local labor to build this, or are you going to be bringing people in from the outside, or maybe a mixture of both?
That is still to be determined. Again, we are very early in the process. As a local advisor, I can say that message has been passed on. I think everybody benefits when local construction is used, but it's still to be determined. Hopefully, we will have an answer for that by the next time you see me. I know that the discussions are happening. This is one of the downsides of being this early in the project. We might not have all of those decisions made yet, just like our designs. So we're working on that.
Okay, so as someone who's been in the IT field a good portion of my life, I've been in a few data centers, and I realize that once built, they don't require a lot of employees. But how many do you think this one will?
I think our anticipated full employee load, plus or minus 20%, is approximately 125. But as the project develops, I've seen that go up and down based on the designs.
Okay, I want to go back to the basically the sound levels and maybe even the lighting when this is fully built. I live 2 miles from this, so I don't think it hopefully doesn't affect me at all. But there is a subdivision within like a half a mile of this called New Harmony, and I just want some insurances. I mean, as far as the lighting and the noise.
Yeah.
Michael Lyons with the architecture team. So the
Mr.
specifics
Lyons.
on the lighting and the
Mr.
noise.
Lyons, if you could restate your name in
yep.
the microphone so everybody can hear that. It's online, please. Thank you.
My name is Michael Lyons. I'm with HKS, the architecture team, leading the design of this project. So from the lighting design and the acoustical studies on the project, again, unfortunately, these are still very early phase. I know a lot of the people that are here today were also at our earlier presentation where they saw numbers about 85 decibels. That's just a baseline from zoning or local ordinances. But what we're seeing in some of our early studies on other sites is getting down to the 60 decibels in that range. But again, those are still early. The projects that we're talking about with Nebius on those sites that have started those acoustical studies are about 2 months ahead of this one. So we do have scope and coverage for experts in sound and attenuation and acoustical studies to be done, along with bringing in lighting, which is probably going to start happening within the next month. But we just don't have those final numbers yet.
Okay, thank you. And I had one more question. I think this is probably more to city staff than you guys. I have an understanding of, the electricity piece and the water, but we're going to be adding natural gas turbines, to do this. Is that going to require extra water as well for the cooling of that? And if so, how's that going to have any effect on this?
So the water, Joe and I have talked about this, and you're welcome to come up, but the water usage is still negligible compared to the availability that we had. So when we started the discussion, as we do with all development projects, we talked about really 3 million gallons a day being that cap that we could reach before we were talking about either making adjustments at the water plant or additional infrastructure being required. So with the cooling of the new plant and the data center's usage being as low as it's anticipated to be, we're still well within that range that we have available.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
to continue with the water discussion, that's been a topic of conversation. Obviously, we have a great natural resource here, and I'd say our water is probably some of the best in this country. I'll put it up against anybody. this is probably more specific to our interim city manager. Given the level of usage of water that's anticipated for this site compared to other industries that we have within the town, where does this project rate with the water usage comparatively?
The water usage anticipated here, other than the charging, the 1.4 million gallons that would be used to charge the system, the day-to-day usage, they're looking at top end, 635,000 gallons per year, which is, not even 2,000 gallons a day, which is a small, when we design projects, we use a design factor of 100 gallons a day per person, just typical water usage. So if that kind of helps frame, you're talking water for 17 to 17 people really, very, very small in the grand scheme of our users.
So to put it, so we're talking about Nibius right now as being a business within the valley, but we would have these conversations with any business that's coming into the valley because they are drawing down our utilities, whether it's electrical, our water, and also our sewer. So these technical conversations would be had regardless if it's Nibius or not. Nibius is just more of a higher profile conversation than something typically that would be envisioned out there as well, but these are staff conversations that are going on routinely.
Routinely, yes, these are routine discussions, and not just in the valley. These are discussions that we have with any commercial development that would be in town, regardless of where in town they would be. Water usage is always one of the things we take into consider. There's all the code standards, all of those are still being abided by with this project. They're still going through the same engineering reviews, the same department reviews that we would any other project.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Please proceed.
I have a number of questions, but let me just start. So when we're talking about the amount of investment, you did say billion, right, with a B, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Because it muffled a little bit when you, so $150 billion investment in our community is obviously a major investment. Some questions relative to the water and not really the water side, but the wastewater side. I don't know the process. I'm not a data person, but is there anything that comes out of the data center that goes to into the sewage system, or other than just normal where?
No, normal use. We anticipate there will be landscaping that will require irrigation, wash down of equipment from time to time, restrooms for the staff. Otherwise, it would be no different than any other development. The closed loop system, the top off, there is no discharge that goes with that top off. That's just topping off to natural water. A little bit of natural water loss, but we don't anticipate 20% of the 1.4 per year, so we're still talking a relatively small amount. And to add a little bit of specificity to that, the water needs to be demineralized, so it's not something we would be able to draw directly from the city. If we used city water, we would need to demineralize it on site. Otherwise, the cooling water would be brought in from off-site. Not impacting the water provided by the city, so it wouldn't impact the city water.
So they don't have to like flush the system every so often or anything of that nature?
Not that I'm.
Part of the 20%. Oh, sorry. Hi, Tim Gerard with Affiliated Engineers. Part of the 20% they're talking about will go to waste, but it will be something that'll be stored within the system and discussed with the city and how to send that over to the waste treatment plant. It's nothing out of the ordinary, though.
It wouldn't
It's
be
something-
toxic or anything of that
No,
nature?
no.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. What is the, I don't know if you can tell us this or not, but like the other data centers that Nebius owns, what are their noise levels that typically, that they have?
That's a great question. I do not know that answer off the top of my head, but I'm going to write that one down, and we can see if we can get some follow-up data on that. Happy to
That would
provide
be
it.
helpful, and And same thing maybe would hold true with the light question as well. That seems like a good question. So relative to Nebius as a whole, how many data centers do they own?
I know there is one operated in Finland. That is a fascinating, and I hope to bring a little bit more information about that next time, because with their heating, they partnered with the local community, and during the winter in Finland, which is more substantial than our winter, they provide approximately 70% of the heat to the town. That's a fantastic use, but we have operations there in England, obviously here. There are some co-locations. So in terms of major data center projects, I believe we'll have to get back to you on the exact number, but you got to remember we're also about a 2.5-year-old company. So any data centers that are developed and owned by Nebius are going to be very, very new.
Okay. You may not be able to speak to this, but at some point, maybe, I don't know if you want Joe to speak to this or not, but I'm interested in the air pollution piece of the puzzle. Obviously, the data centers don't really throw off much air pollution, but the power production side of things may, at least some degree or another, so I'd like to know about that. In your sheet here, it talks about a community engagement panel.
Yes.
And I think, could you say a little more about what you hope from that community engagement panel and what that might do for the process here?
Yeah, we are in the process of collecting names. It will be a Nebius-led group, but really it's to serve as an official mechanism to go between the community and Nebius, a regular feedback mechanism. What that looks like, I think we'll look to the local community to help guide us on that. But overall, it is a mechanism that will give a larger swath of the community an opportunity to engage directly with Nebius, and that will be an ongoing cooperation. That's not just something we set up for the first 6 months. That will be something that will be ongoing to keep those mechanisms in place as long as they're necessary.
And so you talked about us being early in the process here, and at least from my standpoint, we appreciate that very much, as opposed to being late in the process. And so, but I'm wondering what you envision relative to, as the next several months roll out, what you envision that process to be, and what you anticipate in how you would engage with us, with the public. What your thoughts are there?
Absolutely. So I think our plan now is we're going to take what we learned today back. We do have an application into the city. I believe that might be under consideration within the next 30 days. So that process will start.
That would be what kind of application?
The Chapter 100 incentive application.
Right.
That has been submitted. I think we will go through that process. And once that is sort of our go, no-go determination, and if accepted and awarded, then we will hit the ground running. I think based on that timeline, ideally we would like to begin construction by the end of the summer.
Okay.
Permitting, everything notwithstanding, but I think we'll be ready to go.
This may be a question for Mr. Cover, and I think it is at what, I'm not exactly sure what, we've not done a data center here before, so I'm not sure what are steps in our process relative to what we approve or don't approve, what's just goes through staff approval and things. So I guess my question really is, at what point in the process do we sign agreements or whatever with Nebius? And I guess the question really maybe is more applicable to, things like sound and light and things of that nature. They say, well, it's going to be, limited to this amount. How do we make sure that the citizens of Independence are assured on an ongoing basis that that is maintained?
So as I mentioned earlier, all these plans will go through our typical review process. So the rules that would apply to any private development still apply here. As far as council approval, as was mentioned, the Chapter 100 would be the final piece of this that will come before the council. The zoning was approved several years ago that this land use is allowable under the existing
Right.
zoning out there, so there's no work to do there. The only other real piece that would be coming forward would be the vacation of Bly Road for the relocation
Right.
that would occur. But
Okay.
that's all that will be required of the council, is this is a legal land use under the existing zoning.
Okay.
And again, all existing building codes will apply to this project as they would any private development.
All right, those are my questions for now. I may have more. See what other questions are raised.
As you come up with them, feel free.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I'm just going to camp just a little bit on what Councilman Fears was speaking about regarding the zoning and in the exchange that we had here. Just to put into just a tad bit of historical context, this development, and just not with Nibius, but with the partnership that we have with North Point, is a 30-year time span of getting the Little Boo Parkway, Jefferson, or Jackson Drive built, developing that valley. When I was on the council, 96 to 2004, this was what we were working on to develop this valley. Fast forward 30 years when North Point purchased the property, came to the city council, worked on with the zoning for the requirements for industrial use, data center use, and also commercial use. This was discussed and voted on summer of 2022. So we do not have to vote on any zoning change. We had public hearings, we had numerous public engagement meetings regarding all of that zoning. So the zoning's in place. That is not anything that we have to review. So I just want to put a little bit of context on why some of the conversation out there in the public has been very misunderstood and not understood very well. So that's why we're not voting on zoning or different changes. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else
Mr.
have a
Mayor.
question? Please proceed.
My question list has dwindled. So
Good.
I believe this actually would be for the city, which I heard this question several times today. Is the city taking on any debt for this?
The city isn't issuing debt for this. This is backed, well, any Chapter 100 incentives are not city-backed anyway. And the power plant construction, we've covered under different agreements, so that's nothing that is part of the city's capital project fund or ratepayer, borne by the ratepayer. So this is private development, private funds.
Thank you. While I have the microphone, let me see if I have one more. I think they've all been answered, so I think I'm good for now.
And the
Thanks.
reason I said good when you said your question list is dwindling, that means we've been answering them.
Yes.
I
A lot of them were
I like to
answered
hear
there,
that,
so.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor.
Please proceed.
Ms. Interim City Manager, can you kind of, two things. Can you kind of explain what the Chapter 100 bonds are? And then number two, I think there's been a misconception of what pilots are that we receive, the payment in lieu of taxes. Can you also kind of explain what that is and at full build out, what kind of dollar-wise we may receive to the general fund?
Certainly, I will try. And I may pester either Mr. Scannell or DeSalle to come up and help. But Chapter 100 bonds are basically an incentive package that is applied to economic development projects that provide tax abatements in the form of construction materials, sales tax abatement, and or personal property tax abatement. The construction abatement on the construction materials would end at the life of the construction project. The property tax abatement will continue for the life of, we'll say 20 years, for the life of the bond issuance. So that is what allows developers to pay back the costs associated with the project. Now, pilots are payment in lieu of taxes, and that is something that is the utility is think of it as a franchise fee in a way. It's a payment that the city utilities make to the general fund for each utility based on their revenue. So the number for each utility is 9.08%. It's paid by Power and Light, it's paid by water, it's paid by sanitary sewer. All of those utilities pay their same percentage across the board. In this project, it is anticipated, again, everything is anticipated numbers, right? Because full build out isn't here, design isn't complete, and things like that, but could be 30 million to the general fund, could be more. But those are anticipated numbers at full build out.
And that's per year, 30
Per
million?
year.
Per year, okay. And we wouldn't be able to get that if we did not, or the utility wasn't ratepayer owned, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And
Now
that-
just for clarity, there's also been, the term pilot has also been thrown around as it pertains to some of the other taxing jurisdictions. So the school district is a taxing jurisdiction, the library, all of those other pieces that get property tax and they get property tax at a higher rate than the city does. So just to confirm, that term has been used, but that is a separate fee that's not related to the city and not related to the general fund. Those dollars would go to those taxing jurisdictions individually. The pilots that we speak of related to the general fund are all coming from the utilities based on their revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Other further questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
thank you. But so I've got some questions that I put together from emails and calls that I got from constituents. And the first one I think is for Jeremy. The question was, did City Council meet in executive session and sell the land to Nebius? Did we own the land? Did we sell the land?
To my knowledge, the city never owned the land at issue.
Okay, thank you. That's first. And then to Nebius, I think one of the things that I've realized, there are some really bad actors in the data center space, and I've been reading about them, doing research. There was a 60-minute. I know about Memphis and how that data center has really wreaked havoc on the community there. Nebius is a newer company, and so can you talk about what makes you different and what you've learned from the earlier generation of data centers?
I can speak to, it too, as it goes to this project, but being an AI factory rather than a traditional cloud data center, this isn't where Facebook groups are going to be housed and maintained. A lot of those were built early on, 10 plus years ago. The technology has changed. My 10-year-old computer is no longer supported by Windows, just as an example of how much things change over that time. So I can't speak to the other ones. All I can speak is to what we know of and how we're looking at this. And it's to get away from that to the reputation. That's one of the reasons we held the open house today rather than not at all, or in July or August, is you can look at the other projects, look at how they've gone, not only in Kansas City, in the state of Missouri, and nationally. We're all kind of facing the headwinds that were created by Gen 1, Gen 2. I don't even know what generation this would technically be, but using the latest technology, you already saw in the slide illustrating the water differences. We're talking a fraction of a percent of the total water used. That can be extrapolated across the entire development process. So I'm not familiar with the specifics of Memphis, but when I look at these plans, when I look at the company's intentions, I can tell it's something like that is not on our radar because it wouldn't be considered.
Okay. Can you go back to the site plan?
Yes.
So I believe when we first started hearing about this, that there was some talk that this would be more than 4 buildings.
Yes.
Can you talk about, it seems like this has scaled down a bit.
It has scaled down in number of buildings only.
Okay.
I think the scale has gone up just a little bit by square footage.
Okay.
It was a consolidation of multiple buildings, the overhead on multiple buildings, just the economy of scale, especially with the investments levels that we're looking at. I can't speak to the design purposes. This is pretty much as I'm not an engineer or a designer. But from what I understand, if you would like to add some detail, I'd be happy to bring Michael up.
So I actually, if I recall correctly, and I talked to some people, this is Michael with HKS again. So I believe some of the early site plan developments were showing between 8 and 10 buildings on the site. That is probably being early planned with the designer, which wasn't us, by the way, for more cloud type facilities, which can operate like that. What we see in the data center industry now, there's kind of 2 facilities that are at play, and what a lot of the press cover are cloud facilities, 99.9% uptime, a lot of the bad actors you refer to. What we've seen in the past maybe 2 to 3 years are these campuses coming online for AI training models, a little bit different use, different functions, while we don't have necessarily the same generator capacity, emergency generation, that type of thing at these types of sites. But what we found is that on the AI side of things, it actually makes a lot more sense and things more efficient from sustainability and other aspects of the project and with the density and increased technology that we're seeing at the chip level, to house more infrastructure in single facilities that we can. So this site in particular has kind of been master planned around the power availability at the site from day one. And then scaling the site as power could come online in the future with larger facilities that just help the AI training models inside the facilities function better.
Okay, while you're there, can you talk a little bit about, I see water features, I see green space. Can you talk a little bit more about the plan?
I can. So a lot of what you're seeing in the water features in particular are not necessarily day one water features. We're not putting lakes on the site. This is water retention to help offsite, because we will have runoff from the buildings when it rains, events like that, to control offsite erosion or water runoff from the site. That's what those are really there for. The larger one to the south end of the site is more for the floodplain and dealing with that. And then vegetation, we have a landscape architect on this, much like most of the projects that we're working on or looking at with Nebius, is we do want to integrate this into using more local plantation, make it look like it's part of the surrounding environment, even though, I mean, it is a data center, it's a little different than the farmland that's out there right now, but being conscious of that and trying to integrate it into the surrounding area.
Can you go back to the pictures of the design options? Can you talk about why these look like they do and what your sort of design theory is on these?
So a lot of the data center design historically has been from an inside out. It's purely functional. One thing that I commend Nebius for looking at, and us as architects are always happy to do, is adding a little bit more design to it, being more intentional, that it's not just the gray box building that's out there. The real story behind these, some of this is tying into Nebius's own corporate color scheme and that sort of thing that they bring in, trying to develop visual interest, making it not seem like a fortress that somebody doesn't want to visit. Granted, there will be on-site security measures and stuff like that that'll occur at the site perimeter, but the overall aesthetic that we're trying to achieve here is just something that's a little bit more pleasing to the eye, that when you drive by it, like I've seen it personally in Phoenix where I live, where there's a data center sitting right next to a storage facility, and the storage facility, who by all intents and purposes generates far less revenue, looks way better than the data center. And us as architects and designers are really trying to address that, and we're really happy that Nebius is also on board for looking at those types of things and trying to push that design forward.
Yeah, I think that's one of the issues with some of the older data centers is how 100%. Awful they look.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then a few questions for staff. I don't know who's going to answer this one. I got a lot of questions about scope creep. Does that make sense? Like, they're saying they're only going to use this much water. What if they need more? They're saying they're only going to use this much power. What if they need more? Even what if, is there a process if they decide to build more buildings? Can someone talk about that?
I can talk about it from the water side specifically. When we have a new private development come in, the city issues what we call a will serve letter. We will serve you water service, and at a guaranteed rate, or not monetary rate, but flow. And we have this much capacity to dedicate to this project. Beyond that, modifications would have to be made. If there were future buildings to be added, like any building addition, plans would have to be reviewed again, engineering studies resubmitted and things like that. It isn't just, we have water available, it's we have this much water available to dedicate to this project, and if that creeps, then we renegotiate that. We have that conversation, because as buildings would be added, you can imagine not everything in the city is standing still. Additional developments continue to happen, and so water is dedicated to other places, as is our additional power capacity. So those things have to be continually discussed, and if modifications are made, then you have to look at the infrastructure and capacity available at that time.
Thank you. Then I think my last question, again, bad, data center actors, giant data center, 5 employees. We've all seen that and read about that. You have stated 125, I think, to 150-ish. Can you talk about what kind of jobs they are and maybe give an average wage?
I can't speak to it directly because obviously the facility's not up and running. That would be at full build out. Some of the obvious initial ones would be security, maintenance staff, equipment management. What those are beyond that, it's hard to scope out right now. I'll have to get back to you on the average salary. I know it was in our application, and I apologize. The number is escaping me right now, but we can absolutely circle back and provide you with that.
And then just a comment. I think there's a lot of people that maybe weren't at the December 8th meeting, maybe didn't get the sort of overview of the power contracts. I would go back and look at that meeting. It's really important. It's a little complicated. And then I wanted to thank those of you who came today. We had some really good conversations. It was a lot of one-on-one. They weren't always easy conversations, but I think they were good, and I appreciate how respectful everyone's been. This is an unprecedented project for Independence. We've never done anything like this before. It's big. And so I'm glad that we're going to continue to talk about this. The staff is going to continue to work on the permitting and working with Nebius. So this isn't over. We've got a lot more to do.
We are at the beginning of what is hopefully a very long and fruitful relationship.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To touch base a little bit on the environmental impact, I think we had some good dialogue here tonight and also at the previous meeting regarding the environmental impact potentially that this could bring. And I feel strong and safe that you guys are going to do all you can to mitigate that. But I think there's also a point that perhaps maybe goes, you don't see the tree through the forest. So it's more of the City of Independence, one of the best assets that the city owns is a permit to produce power through a power plant. Those are things that are extremely difficult to get, and we have that. And because we have that, we have great, intimate working relationships with the state, DNR, with the federal government. We've decommissioned 2 power plants. We've removed $6 million worth of ash pond waste there in 2016. So we, as a team, The city as a team, Lisa and her team, they have worked quite well with the state, with the federal government to regulate and maintain those high standards that are put upon us to be able to maintain that permit to use a power plant. So I would be more cautious if we didn't have that knowledge, but the fact that we have decades of that knowledge, or almost a century of that knowledge, that we can manage this quite well in the professionalism of Nibius and their team and our team. So I just, as I was sitting here thinking about that, it's like, we've done a lot of this. This is a newer project, new data center, and new challenges. Things are way different than when I was on the council in 1996, I can tell you that, to now. So I think it's very important that we have this experience. So I feel more comfortable talking out loud with you, so thank you.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Mr. Mayor. A couple of follow-up questions. Could you go back one slide to the layout? So there's a lot of, I was looking up close, it's hard to read from here, but I was looking at the version you gave us up close, and there's a lot of equipment yards in there, in that design. I'm just wondering, what kind of equipment are we talking about? And I mean, it's not the computer stuff, so.
Yeah.
So I can talk to that a little bit. Michael again with HKS. So in the northeast of the site, what you're seeing is a lot of the power. On the north side is power substation and the power equipment to get power into the facility. And then to the south of that building, there's a lot of the chiller equipment in order to keep the facility cool. Sorry. And then the following three buildings, those three buildings are even earlier concept than the first one, so I do want to preface with that. Those would be just your utility yards to support the power coming into the building. So right now we're looking at approximately 3 to 4 generators per building and then some switch gear in those yards. And based on some calls we had earlier today, those yards are likely oversized. To the specifics of what that looks like, don't really know yet. The majority of the mechanical equipment on the following on 3 buildings, we're looking at going roof mounted with screening and acoustical treatments there to help support that. So they won't necessarily be sitting at grade, but they're still, so like that mechanical system that you're seeing to the south of building 1 has been moved to the tops of the buildings on the future buildings.
Okay, and you spoke to generators, so I wanted to ask about that. That was one of the questions that I got. So you think like 4 generators per building is what you're thinking of? Is that?
Yep.
And can you frame that relative to what we might understand? So, how often do they run? And
that's an excellent question. So, without getting too specific in my understanding of how we're planning on currently operating this facility, we have about 4 generators that are being placed on site to help support the critical equipment cool down and shut down of the operations in a power outage event. So I think like a lot of the conversation when we talk about bad actors or large scale data center campuses and cloud computing environments, which is the mass of the market historically, those require like the 99% uptime. So if power goes down, a site this size would have 300 or 400 generators on it that ran continuously while the power's out. That's not the case here. So if I was to equate it to something, it would probably be something close to like a regional hospital experiencing a power outage and they need to turn their generators on. Except that hospital has to keep their generators running the full time while the power outage is. Here we're looking at running the generators just to allow for the cooling of the equipment, the critical equipment inside to cool down and shut off from their operational procedures.
Okay, that's helpful. So do they come on, do they test those every once in a while, I'm assuming?
Yes, that is one point of clarification. So they do come on, I believe it's about once a month. I think it's maybe an hour or 2 for testing and commissioning. It's not necessarily the whole site that'll be phased as how they do that, but that's part of the operational thing that we haven't gone through entirely yet.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll trim down my list because a bunch of these have been taken care of, so these are not really in any particular order. So from your designs, these are pretty low-profile buildings. These are not 5-story buildings. They're not going to really stand out on the horizon. If you have a house, you're not going to be looking down on an apartment complex kind of height.
No, correct.
Okay. You talked about jobs, 120 to 150 perhaps. These are on-site jobs. These are permanent jobs. These aren't, I call it in from Seattle jobs, just making sure I understand that correctly.
That is my understanding, but I can go back and get it some additional clarification. Yes, and I just received the clarification. The answer is yes.
Okay. I know that my colleagues have asked about local workforce, about union labor at previous events. That really starts with your general contractor. Do you expect your GC to be local?
We are in process on that. I will have an answer for you the next time we're in front of you.
Okay, thank you. A number of environmental questions that I thought were good ones, and especially ones to get in front of you as you are doing design. People asked about, some of these you may not be able to answer today, but I just want them on your radar. Native plantings, so in part because that supports wildlife, but it also is drought resistant. So people bring all kinds of trees in here that don't tolerate a hot Missouri summer.
I can check the box on that one. We're
Okay.
already on that one.
Thank you. Additional trees, both it helps you cool, and we've got a number of really important bird species that come. This is a flyway, so additional trees that are natives, sycamores and things that are good for those perching birds and those large birds. I know that we've talked about lights, and it's not just the light pollution for the people who live nearby, but also how those lights affect migratory birds. Thinking that we don't have additional upward wasted light, that it's really designed to be down onto the pavement. I know that you do a lighting study. I know you have to produce a lighting proposal for the city. I just want to be sure those are things that we're spending some time on.
We're on top of that, absolutely.
Thank you. Lots of people concerned about water discharge. I think you've talked about that some. I want to just check with Lisa. We still are under all of the rules for the Department of Natural Resources and all of the rules for the Environmental Protection Agency. We have to follow what we discharge in the water and how we treat it at our water treatment plant. None of that changes.
None of that changes. We are operating under the city's NPDES permit. We have to abide by all of those rules at all times.
Okay. And we have also decibel standards for a city that they're going to have to operate under. And those are the same sorts of noise restrictions that we would put on any other industrial user.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to put a pin in this one. I hope that there is an opportunity for us to do noise audits periodically, just so that we can reassure folks that, yes, as this reaches its full capacity, we are at standard operation. We can say, okay, we tested this twice a year, or, obviously things are louder in the winter because there's a whole lot less vegetation to absorb noise. That way we can just reassure folks that, yes, we understand your concerns and we can answer that well. So I put that as a please.
Absolutely, I will take that note, 100%.
I did get questions about school district. So the property tax, one of the things I hear the most about is people are frustrated by how much they pay in property taxes. This, to me, one of the benefits of this is that we have the opportunity to share our property tax load with these industrial users, and they don't come with extra school kids. So it is money that goes to the district without increasing the number of children that they have to educate. The question I have gotten is all this money going to the Blue Springs School District? And so I know the answer to that, but can you reassure them that that is not the case?
That is not the case. So the money is distributed by taxing jurisdiction and where those lines fall. So the majority of the money to school districts goes to Independent School District. There is a portion that also goes to Fort Osage.
Okay. And we have no restrictions on what happens to that money. That money just goes to them and then is governed by their board of directors. The city has no influence over that.
Correct. That is private to their funds, and we have nothing to do with that.
I'm actually going to perhaps ask a question that you may want to punt to Mr. Hagendeffer. Anybody who's watched some of the bad actors in other data centers has heard the stories that the data center comes in, they use so much electricity at a rate or a cost that ends up being borne by the ratepayers. And I'm talking about residential ratepayers. And I know that you have worked very, very hard to structure this so that industrial user pays their entire cost of generating and using their electricity while also supporting some of the costs of improving our grid structure. Is that a fair representation? Okay. So I just want to say that one more time so people really get a sense of this, because it is something that has consumed the council. We can't do this big thing at the cost of regular people who have to pay their light bill. And part of the reason we've been slow to add generation is in part, how do we get that paid for? So I'm going to give you my explanation. You can tell me if I am on track. We have a company that will help build the generation. That electricity passes through Independence Power and Light, where we have the opportunity to impose a franchise fee just like Evergy or any other for-profit energy system. And then that energy drives right out the door and into the large industrial user. So it really doesn't even cross the utility for the ratepayers. Their generation is completely separate from this, and the rates that they pay are based on that. Is that a fair assessment?
That is a fair assessment. And to be clear, just to kind of answer another question that I got this afternoon kind of related to this was, you're building all this generation, so what is available for other projects? The generation that's being built in this phase 1 and 2 are specifically dedicated to Nebius for their use. So as we've discussed, being part of the Southwest Power Pool, we have to have a peaking factor on our capacity. So we have to, if we use, 38% for winter. It does vary depending on the time of the year, but we have to have capacity over and above the actual demand. And so while, yes, there will be more than 800 megawatts built, it will still be dedicated for this specific purpose.
And we obviously can't get our combustion turbines in before you begin to do work on site, and so that would require us to have some capacity that we would bring in to cover those early periods, and we have figured out a mechanism to do that, also not at the cost of the residential ratepayer.
Correct, and those ordinances will be before the council at our next meeting. They're with 2 different entities, 4 separate agreements for that capacity until the actual plant comes online.
So I'm going to ask my last question, and this may be Mr. Heggendeffer's department here. What if they change their mind? Like, we assume that you are honorable folks and that you want to come and do work in our town, but if we do all of this work and build power generation, et cetera, and Nebius in a year goes, hey, just kidding, what happens to that? Is the city on the hook? Are the ratepayers on the hook for that? I think that's an important question.
He thought he was going to get away with having to not come up tonight. I can, while Mr. Heggendeffer makes his way forward, I can tell you that those questions were absolutely contemplated and were part of not only council's contemplation of this project as a whole, but staff's as well, and not wanting our ratepayers to be bearing burden if minds changed, plans changed, locations changed, or any of that. So we have a purchase power agreement in place, and that offers protection to the city. We've talked about everything from, the world ending and that being the one thing maybe that put us at risk, but there are plenty of protections that are built into that, and I'll go ahead and let Mr. Heggendeffer
So Joe Heggendeffer, Independence Power and Light Director, and I was that close, right, to getting away with no questions. So there are protections written into both the purchase power agreement with the private developer of the plant. So your scenario, we get to a point, data center decides they don't want to come to town. We as a city will decide if we want to move forward with that project or not, and if we want to take on that burden. because we would no longer have an off-taker? Or do we find another project that could take that place? So I think there would be discussions at that point, but we're not automatically on the hook to pay that if the project doesn't move forward.
And what if they become suddenly amazingly energy efficient and they don't need as much power as we have the capacity for? Are we able to sell that capacity on the open market?
So the capacity would be obligated to this project. So how much they use and how they utilize it would be purely up to the data center. If they wanted to free up capacity and allow us to sell it on the open market, that would be probably an amendment to any deals that we would have with them through an energy service agreement. And we would have that discussion at that point in time. But they are paying for all the capacity, so all the capacity would be theirs rightfully.
But they're obligated to pay for it whether they use it or not.
That is correct.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Other questions?
Mr. Mayor, Joe,
Go, don't run off.
Yeah,
may I?
please.
Go ahead.
This is also one of the things that makes what's happening at Independence different than what has happened in earlier projects, correct?
That's correct. So IPL, the developers, and the data center have seen the failures of other data center deals and how those have gone down. And we've worked very hard to write in every single protection we can for the residents throughout this. Yeah, I think that this is structured completely different, and the guarantees and the protections for us are different than other cities have experienced.
In fact, the state of Oklahoma has done something interesting recently, right? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Not specifically.
So they have passed a law that would demand that data centers that come into Oklahoma produce their own power. So we've beat them to that because that's what we're doing. Okay, thanks.
We also took into consideration some of the Missouri Public Service Commission passed some rules and regulations for investor-owned utilities and protections of their residents, and we took those into consideration when we were writing our agreements as well. So a lot of all the protections that we saw out there from public and private entities, we took into consideration when negotiating and talking through.
Can you just speak to the bond?
The bond.
Guarantee bond, just as a protection for the city?
Oh, there's a performance guarantee, yes, that, so if Nebius gets 10 years down the road and files for bankruptcy, there's protections for us to continue to help pay for that power plant beyond that time point, yeah.
Joe, one of the questions I've heard is relative to the power production side of things and how much, air emissions there might be as a result of that. Given the number of turbines we anticipate and things of that nature, can you speak to that at all?
Sure. So one thing we have to keep in consideration is even though we're going to have 15 combustion turbines, that doesn't mean they're all going to be running 365 days around the year, right? So they're only going to be required to run when the Southwest Power Pool calls on them for needs for the whole transmission system. Each one of these are new state-of-the-art turbines that will have back-end emissions controls on them, state-of-the-art emissions controls. And yeah, the other thing is when we look at the efficiency of how plants run, our old combustion turbines that we have throughout the city burn like an old 57 Chevy, right? And these things are Priuses. So they burn significantly less fuel to produce the same amount of power that older equipment does. And that, in and of itself, you're going to burn less gas to produce the same amount of energy, and then they have the emission systems on the back end of it. So there's a lot of protections given to these new age combustion turbines that significantly reduce their emissions beyond what they have been in the past 10 to 15 years.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've heard a number of questions about that. So.
And I can have emission numbers maybe the next time I'm in front of you for each hour of run of those.
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
to stay on the combustion turbines, you're absolutely right. We have the old combustion turbines. Correct me, I think we just approved a contract to do maintenance on one.
That's correct.
How much was that? Was it a couple million?
About $2 million to replace some of the blades in the first couple of stages of one of our units, yeah.
And the reason why I say that's important, because the systems that we have, the 57 Chevy style, we're not cracking those casings less than $1 million to get into the hood and just to look to see what the fans are doing and the incremencies. On top of, they find something even more major on that. So how many of those do we have that the city owns in our substations?
So we have 6 combustion turbines throughout our city that are 1960s and 70s vintage.
So is it safe to assume those are as environmentally safe as we can possibly make them, but they're obviously 1960 in comparison to the ones that will be the new generation here? What's you consider to a Prius to a 57 Chevy? I mean,
right. It's just so the new combustion turbines, we call it heat rate. So again, how much fuel are you burning to get energy out of it? The new ones will be about 3 times as efficient as our old ones. So.
And the quick start, I mean, starting these things is I don't know what you want to compare it to. The old lawnmower pull compared to a button start. I mean, when we have to fire these up that we have.
So I don't want to downplay that our old turbines are very reliable and older
yes,
units,
thank you.
but yeah, they're quicker start. They're much more robust and agile, I guess I would say. So their time from start to getting up to full load are a lot quicker than our older units, yes.
Yeah, I don't want to downplay our system. I mean, you guys maintain that quite well, and they do very well. But the comparison of old and new is, I just want to make sure that is not lost.
Correct.
Anyone else? Other further questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
just one more question, not to Joe. You mentioned in the beginning, you guys are in this for the long haul, and you mentioned 20 years. Does that sound about
That's the
right?
anticipated
Or more, right? Hopefully more.
With what you put in, yeah, it's nobody likes to walk away from investment too early.
Okay, so, I mean, this is a company that Nebius, companies merge and get sold, but as of right now, this is something Nebius would be operating, correct?
To my knowledge,
No.
absolutely, yes, yeah.
Okay, that's all I had, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have further questions? Okay, going back to water usage, we've got this question here. One of the things is by using a closed loop system, there are some arguments that you're now pushing the water usage back on the generation of the power. And I don't know if there's anyone here that could you do that, Joe? I almost, when you walk back, I almost said, please, Joe, don't sit down, because I was going to come back to you, so. Because with the closed loop system, they're not using as much water, but the concern was if they do that, then you pull more power to do it and then use water on that end of the equation.
So the power plant operations is totally separate from the operations of the data center. They're not connected in any way. I think that question came from a data center that was kind of tied to power generation and a steam loop, but these are completely separate. In no way, shape, or form are they connected. So that would be, I'm going to say, impossible that a data center would push back anything to our generation plant.
Yeah, because you don't.
In the form of water, for sure.
Right, because will the generation plant use water to cool? It's going to be.
So I did hear that question come up earlier, and the phase 1 plant that has the 15 combustion turbines, they don't use water. They burn fuel and create heat. The phase 2, the larger plant that will come toward the end of the year of 2029, that will have a steam cycle and will utilize some water, and I'm getting those numbers to our water department as we speak. Again, a lot of this is very early in design as well, so I want to be able to get good numbers. But the first phase won't use any water.
Okay, very, very good. Appreciate that. And then, again, you would recommend people watch was it the December 9th study session where you talked about the power purchase agreements, independent power partners agreements, all of that.
I think that was, yeah, it was a good couple hours of discussions and give the details of what these agreements are all about, yes.
Right, because that's one of the things I think is really, really important.
December 8th is
Thank
what
you
I'm
very
being told.
much.
It was December 8th.
Appreciate that clarity, but because that's really when you went through the process of making sure that we had contracts that passed through the expenses with regards to the power usage, that we didn't sell it at a certain rate, we're not at a risk at a rate, they're paying the market rates. So if rates spike, they pay the higher rate. If they come down, they pay the lower rate, and it's the market rate all the way through, which is really the biggest risk that we have with regards to this project from my perspective.
Correct.
So very, very good. Another question somebody had was, will residential or small business customers ever subsidize this project? And how do we, I don't see it happening, but, from your perspective.
So residential or commercial subsidizing this project?
Right.
So this project is, I think as our interim city manager explained, is kind of its own deal with the power and the load being together and being its own entity and not kind of crossing paths with those residential and commercial rates. So no, at no time will those customers be asked to pay a portion of that bill or subsidize it in any way. In fact, it's probably more going to be the opposite of revenues that IPL is going to be able to see from this project will help in the other direction.
You and I had a discussion, and I don't mean to put you on the spot for this discussion, but basically when you and I talked about it was because this project goes into place, and one of the criticisms of the City of Independence and the power system that we had a huge usage of residential users and a very, very small commercial base, and that threw our rate structure off. Now we're going to have a much, much different, the ratio changes significantly.
So it goes from 50-50 residential, so customer numbers were about 90% residential customer numbers. By load, we're about 50%.
Right.
This flips it from being 50-50 to only 25% residential and 75% industrial and commercial.
Right, and so typically in those scenarios over the long haul, residential users fare better because the commercial users are using so much of it, and it just helps the residential rate payers over time.
That is correct. There are towns like McPherson, which you can do a study on, that is heavy industrial, and they have some of the lowest rates in the region because they're like 90+% industrial. So you have each customer is a bigger customer, so it's kind of the Costco mentality, right? The warehouse mentality that one customer is buying bulk, and it helps the other rates.
Right. You're getting just 4 times the amount of purchasing power now because of Nibius coming into the demand that they're going to have for this data center.
Yes.
Is what I'm hearing you say. So very, very good. I've got some more, so hold on one second. That's assuming that my computer will work. Okay, very, very good. I think you're off the hook for me unless anybody else has any questions for Joe. Please proceed.
I don't have any questions, but I'd just like to have a wrap-up comment after everyone's done with questions.
Yeah, I've got one more for
Sure.
our interim city manager and going from there, and then we'll let you have a wrap-up comment.
Sure.
So very, very good.
At least for me. Anyone else can speak.
Yeah, and we'll give other people, they want to have wrap-ups, they can certainly do that.
Sure.
So, a lot of people ask, what are the benefits to the city with regards to this project? And so, how much will the pilot and other revenues projected from this project bring to the city when it's at full capacity? And how does that compare to our regular general fund right now? How much will it be in the future? And then how do you see this playing out in in your mind? If it works and the revenues come in as they expect, how will that change, your budgeting, all of that? So if you can speak on that for a few moments.
I'd be happy to. Let me preface all of these comments by saying this is still cart before horse a little bit, and everything is very preliminary. But to that end, we are having on the staff side, and as I've discussed with all of you in some form or fashion, discussions about that very thing. the ultimate build out, once those pilots are coming into the general fund, what does that look like and what does that mean for our city? We've tossed around game changing and things like that, but I don't want to downplay how lean our organization has become over time and the amount of programs that have been that have had to be discontinued over time because of lack of funds. So while it is exciting to think about a revenue stream, a sustainable revenue stream of this magnitude, I don't want to overlook the fact that we are very lean on staff. We are, there's a joke from someone I used to work with that was like, I'll never go back to working for Independence because every person has to do the work of 4 or 5, and that's just the expectation. We've scaled down so very much over time, there's just not really anything left to cut other than just sheer programs. We cannot have code enforcement. We cannot have stormwater and environmental protection. We cannot have these things. And we're to that point, really. So to have this coming in allows us to look at programs that have been cut. It allows us to target, and this is first and foremost priority for me, and I know staff is on the same page, to target debt pay down. We're going to talk about city's debt at our very next study session in 2 weeks. And so I think targeting that with some of these dollars is key. Can't be overstated how important that is. So I think that is a massive component of these dollars coming in, but really the thing that we're looking at first and foremost is what services can we and should we be providing to our residents that we have had to discontinue over time, and what does it take to get those operational again? So that's prioritizing of the funds from my perspective.
I look at it from this perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, is I've had phone calls from folks that say, what about our parks? What about our roads? And obviously we had a GEO bond for $55 million to help improve that. But I see this over the time frame being the opportunity to drive new energy to all of those projects. The parks, the streets, also just the amount of projects that we can offer for our park systems, in offering competitive programs and things like that we haven't been able to offer in the past. It'll be an opportunity to really enliven the city again. And I think people will feel a visceral difference. Obviously, this is a few years out. Obviously, it's got to happen. We're depending upon, these are big promises, okay, that you're making to all of these citizens here. And these folks have had promises before, and some have not been kept. And that has impacted us immensely as a community. It's one of the reasons I ran. And so it's important for us to have this work, and so that everyone that's here has their hopes fulfilled. And that's how I see it, going forward. So, and I think that's what you're talking about. So
I think
anyway,
quality of life programs are key, and
Right.
again, just those fundamental services that cities should offer. That in some cases we have had to either discontinue altogether or pare back to the fact that it feels to our residents like they've been discontinued. And not to steal the thunder from Parks Master Plan that will be presented also at our next study session, but one of the comments that was made, and these numbers are off the top of my head, so I hope I got them right, but typical cities fund their parks and rec programs at 6% of their general fund, and we're somewhere in the range of 1 or 2%. So just that alone speaks to how lacking some of our services are. And you're absolutely right. It's a chance to do those things. But I also will say we're working hard on the staff side and looking to work with council about this very topic, about making those decisions up front and in advance of any pilots that come into the city. So we all have an agreed upon plan going forward. So when the time comes, there will be lots of requests, as you know, and lots of, but we didn't think about this, or we need to prioritize those things now. And so we have a plan to march to once the revenues are realized.
right. Councilmember Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank everybody for coming this evening and coming to the community engagement that we had at 3:30 to 5:30, and Nebius and your team and staff. There has been a lot of hours that have been put in from everybody to work on the agreement, and then at the proper time to get us informed, to get everybody involved, and want to make sure that the school districts have been involved, ISD has been involved, the Fort State School District's been involved, Mid-Continent Public Library has been involved, Metropolitan Community College has been involved. So a lot of these conversations have taken place, the Chamber of Commerce. So this is just a natural next step to get in front of the folks that can be more informed of what has taken place. There's a lot of misinformation of how we've come here with Nebius, and a lot of it is not accurate. So I want to say thank you for being engaged in your community. It's good to see people engaged in the community. The game-changing aspect of what can take place is very promising, so let's keep moving forward in a positive direction. I think we have a lot of good stuff that we can do with our public safety, with our police department, with our local firefighters, with parks. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities here. So thank you everybody for coming tonight.
Yep, thank you. Anyone else? Other comments? Anybody else? Very good. But no, I second all of your comments there, John, perfectly made. And it is so important for us for this point to ask all these questions. And I know you'll get back to us on those questions that we've asked this evening. And I want to say thank you for all the work you've done and for everyone that's been here. So thank you very much. Anyone else before we move on to the next topic? Yes.
Just to clarify, so we've asked some questions you were not able to answer tonight. You will give those responses to Lisa, and Lisa can share them with the council, and we can share them with the public?
Yes, we
Fantastic.
will. As soon as we get them answered, we'll circulate them to the city staff.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And if I could take just a moment on behalf of Nebius, thank you very much. It's been I've worked on a number of projects like this over the years, and this one's been a great dialogue between the city. You all are very protective of the citizens, and we appreciate that. And that's why what we bring to the table is a little bit different, and how we're engaging is hopefully a little bit different. So thank you and thank you to everybody who came out today. That was a fantastic turnout, fantastic event in our opinion.
Thank you. And also, we've been in this an hour and a half, and if we can take like a 5-minute break, come back, and the next discussion will be facilities construction update, and so we'll go from there. Thank you. bring it back. And this is the continuation of the City Council meeting on January 12th, 2026. And Madam Interim City Manager, I have a question for you, and we should have addressed this one. How are they going to address Bly Road in the interim? I mean, because I know they're going to move that. Are they going to move it first, or how is that going to be handled? And are your colleagues here that
Yeah, come on. Assistant City Manager Charlie DeSalle will be right up to answer that question.
Thank you. And I should have thought about Charlie earlier, but that was a question, and I wanted to make sure we got it addressed. And the timelines and how it's going to work and things like that, Charlie. So thank you.
Charlie DeSalle, Assistant City Manager. So on timeline, we're still kind of a little bit trying to figure some of that stuff out, so I don't have an exact timeline, but yes, the road will be moved, shifted over to the west, connecting with Little Blue Parkway before this project starts. So we will assure, and that's been part of the things we've been discussing with North Point and this project team, is that access will not be cut off from the south to that road.
So there won't be a situation. So that road will flow before the project starts.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
We're working through design on that, getting proper permitting in place, because there is some, is it wetlands down there, I think is what it is. Tom might not know. There's just various permitting that we have to do just with some of the things that are down there and getting that through the process. So, So anyways, North Point's working through a lot of that stuff right now, but we're working to assure that road, I mean, again, it'll flow south while they're constructing that new connection point, but that new connection point will open up before we start putting any buildings on top of that old alignment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. And the next topic is our facilities construction update. So, Interim City Manager, if you can take us down that path.
Sure. I'd like to go ahead and ask Danny Jonas to make his way forward. He's with Project Advocates, our owner's rep for all of our vertical construction projects. But just to give you a high-level overview, as you know, we have many facility projects in various stages of construction. The Commons is wrapping up construction. We're getting ready to break ground on Fire Station 8. The Independence Utility Center is becoming the first phase of the Justice Center as we speak, and they are here to provide you more detail on each of those projects just by way of high-level update.
Thank you.
Danny Jonas, Project Advocates. I'll do my projects, and then I'll let Jennifer come up here. Okay, hold on. There we go. Okay. Here we go. All right, yeah, Project Advocates, we're your owner's reps. We've been up here a few times, so we're just here to provide an update on the what I'll call six projects. The way they're phased, we're bucketing them into 6 projects. A little formatting error here, but the first slide shows the current status, which we'll get into here shortly. With Municipal Commons, construction is in progress. Justice Center Phase 1 in progress. Justice Center Phase 2 is paused. And then our fire station, number 8 with training facility, is getting ready to break ground. And then number 5, design development is complete. And number 11, conceptual design is complete. Here's our consolidated project schedule that is color-coded based on the project. I realize that the IMC construction start is not on here, but that started in June of 2025. So you can see how they're scattered here. There is a little bit of overlap in the fire stations other than that, we're getting ready to wrap up on the first two here. Municipal Commons, levels 2, 3, and 4, substantially complete. Level 1 is tracking to be substantially complete the end of next week, which we're very excited about. And that excludes the council chambers, which we have worked through the design process. And we are also expecting by the end of this week, hopefully, our bid package from our contractor, McCown Gordon. Some updated photos. The reception desk, the building permit counter. We focused on the exciting stuff. The rest of it is office space. It's all exciting, but some of these highlights right here are quite nice. And then we have our in the lower right of the full building view there. You see the new outdoor kiosks that were just installed a couple of weeks ago. So those are soon to be functional once the first floor is all moved in. Moving on to the Justice Center, Phase 1, IUC renovation. Construction's in progress, substantial completion early next month, with about a 6-week furniture, fixtures, equipment move-in, and expecting the building to be fully occupied by PD come March 2026. A couple of progress photos here. We got the memorial wall, the street crimes open office area. Thought we had another slide here, but we do not. But yeah, we're getting very close to substantial completion. We're putting paint on the walls. The ceilings are in, and it's starting to look very, very nice in there. And then, so that brings us to the Justice Center Phase 2, which is the entire campus. Long history associated with that. I'm going to hold off on going into tremendous detail on that, on where we are with the process, but we did design the entire campus, and then we all know what happened to the bond last April, and so we revisited that discussion. We looked at some different options for how we could deliver this project, how we could phase it. We were here, I think it was maybe November, where we had talked about a couple different phased approaches. We revisited that, and then have a modified hybrid approach that we did a study on, completed some conceptual designs on, and then got some preliminary budget numbers in November of 25. But that project currently still is paused. Anything to add there? All right. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague Jennifer.
Good evening, Jennifer Gerlach, Project Advocates. I'm going to talk about the fire stations here. So the first one that we will actually be back to see you again next week, and we saw you in November to do our first approval, is Fire Station 8 and then the training and storage building. The overall budget for both of those buildings, it's really one project, same site, just across the training tower pad from each other there is 21.4. We are coming in right on budget, just where we planned with that. And we came, like I mentioned, we came to you in November for GMP 1. What that was all that early equipment, long lead time items so that we could get stuff in time to stay on construction schedule. So that included the structure of the pre-engineered metal building, which is the training and storage building, as well as a bunch of electrical equipment and some site utility materials that we needed. It also allowed our contractor, Turner Construction, to mobilize. So as of last Monday, we have a trailer sitting out there, so things are happening, which is fantastic. We'll be back next week for GMP 2, which is the remainder of the balance for primarily the building of Fire Station 8 and then all the stuff that goes inside the training storage building. Milestones with that, permitting and bidding, that's what we've just completed and wrapped up here in January. Mobilization and commencement of that. Like I mentioned, we set a trailer last week. That's where our construction team will be homing for the next 13 months during construction. And we anticipate about a 13 to 14 month construction schedule. Pray for good winter weather, both winters, that always helps us, and then move in after that. Here are a few renderings. On the top, you will see the front of the building, the 3 bays. We have the bifold doors, which significantly reduce the amount of time it takes for the apparatus to get out of the bays. So those are newer in the realm of firefighting, and they are really awesome doors. I hope you guys are all able to come see them when they're installed. On the top right, you'll see that's an example of a bunk room. It's a little misleading. The picture of where you're standing, you're actually in a wall. So the beds are up against the corner of a wall, but they are very spacious private bunk rooms now. So in lieu of shared bunk rooms, that helps increase the sleep and just mental health of the firefighters. On the bottom left, you'll see the day room kitchen area. So we're standing, you can kind of see the edge of a chair, which is the reclining chairs for like the day room where they would sit. Then there's the kitchen table, and then looking into the day room, this looks out to the back side of the station. So also outside of here, there's a nice outdoor patio for their grill, so they can spend more time outside and not in the hazardous bay conditions. And then the bottom right you'll see is the back side of the station. So that overhang you see there by the red section, that is off of the day room and the exercise room. So there's nice outdoor space for them to be able to, again, get away from the hazardous bays. This is a front view of the training and storage facility. So this is the pre-engineered metal building. We've matched the metal colors between what we use with the brick, primarily brick on Station 8 with the metal accents, to the metal of this building. This sits really tucked back behind the training building, so it's really out of sight. But we did match the colors, so they're all cohesive across the campus. These doors, since they are not active duty doors, they are just roll-up doors for the force storage apparatus there. Inside, there's a red door. You can kind of see it in the middle. That's the main entrance, and from there is a training facility. So the trainees no longer have to stand outside in the cold and weather. When they're doing classroom-style training, they will be inside the building. And then on the right, there are a couple offices for the staff that will house out of this building. Station 5. So this one, we are in the middle of design on this. We just completed our design development. So within the design process, there's 3 stages. We have schematic design, we have design development, and then construction documents. So we just completed that middle stage. In the next few months, we'll be finishing up our construction documents. At that point, we will go out to bid. That will happen over the summer. So we are trying not to close this station down before the World Cup. We want to leave it open because of the proximity of where it is located in the city. So we will come back to you for a GMP on this one. We believe in August, maybe September, depending on how council meetings fall. And then we would start construction shortly thereafter this fall. It's also about a 12 to 13 month lead time. We will be rebuilding this one in place. So we do have to demolish the current building, which takes a little bit of time, and then we have to also rehome those firefighters to other stations across the city before they would be moving back in the fall of 27. We also have some updated renderings here. So as you'll see at the top, that is the front of the station. That is looking out towards the neighborhood. We are bringing the building forward. Right now it sits really far back off the street, and we're bringing it forward a bit so it's a little bit more prominent. Also, again, response times gets the trucks onto the street to the emergency faster. Again, you'll see the 3 sets of bifold doors, and then the main public entrance right there, the smaller door off to the left. It looks like a 2-story station. It is not. It's a single-story station, but it has the nice high bays that get that sunlight in there. Also, we have really tall trucks that just need high bays. And then along the left side of that picture, you'll see those are all bunk rooms. So similar style bunk rooms to what we have at Station 8. And you can see an example of that in the bottom right picture. Again, kind of misleading. You're standing in the wall in that picture, so the bed is in the corner. And then on the bottom left, you'll see the day room here. This station, we tried to match the aesthetic of all the stations with the neighborhood. So this one is a little bit more traditional, has a lot more brick. We brought that brick inside as well. And then very similar materials. So we have designed all the stations so that each bunk room and each day room and each kitchen have all the same amenities. So we're creating a standard across the stations now. So they may be laid out slightly different, but it's the same standard across. And then Station 11. This one we've completed really in a pre-phase on it. There's been really no change on this since we presented on this to you last year. This is the 3rd station. We've completed concept design. That first true design phase of schematic design will start this spring in about April. We'll start rolling into that. And we will complete design development later this fall and then construction documents early next spring. So right as we're opening one station, we're going to be starting the next. We're trying to phase these so they're manageable for the construction teams and the fire department to also operate them. So construction on that would start in spring of 27, again, about a 12 to 13 month schedule. This one sits by Center Point Hospital, so we're not demolishing anything here. It's new greenfield we'd be building up on, and we'd be opening in spring of 28. And we don't have any renderings yet, but this summer-ish fall when we come back, we'll have those renderings to share with you as well. The layout of this one is nearly identical to Station 8, with the exception of taking off the battalion office and bunk room on the right side of the page, but other than that, the layout's identical. So this one again, we'll start studying the materiality of the neighborhood and what it sits by and what it needs to look like. So that's why this is a gray and white picture for the moment. And that is it. So we're here to answer any questions you have on any facilities.
Very good. Anyone any questions? Please proceed.
For the average bear who doesn't know which station is which, can you
Yes.
tell me the location
Yes.
of like Fire Station 8?
Mm-hmm.
You
Fire
just-
Station 8 sits off Highway 78 and South Pell Road, just to the east of the animal shelter and to the west of the MCC Blue River Technology Campus, where they do the lineman training, and actually not far from what we talked about earlier in the session here, on the south side. So it's a replacement of an existing station that's right on the north side, right by IPL, and we are building a new one on the south side, just about a block and a half away.
Fantastic, thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
Madam Interim City Manager, can you, for anybody that's watching at home or in the audience that may not be aware, can you kind of give a refresher? I mean, that was a lot of money, 21 million, 15 million. Can you just give a refresher on how that's being funded?
Yes, so that was actually my part of this presentation, discuss funding. So the Municipal Commons, we'll just take them from the top. Municipal Commons was funded through a lease purchase, and then for the 20 million, that included the purchase of the building from GIHA and the renovation associated with turning it into the Municipal Commons from what it was as a call center, more or less. That construction's almost complete. Again, lease purchase for 20 million, and then 1.5 was covered by the future sale of the outlot adjacent there to that property, and 750,000 was covering coming from that, and then 750,000 from the utilities as their share as their primary occupants of this building, with them consolidating into this from the utility center. That one is pretty straightforward. The Justice Center, so this one has two different things going on that I did want to clarify. So listed, the budget here is at 5 million, and that is for the renovation alone. And that we issued revenue bonds for a few months ago for 50 million, 5 of that for this remodel of the utility center, and then the remaining 45 dedicated to the fire stations. So I guess we'll talk about that piece real quick. So the marijuana sales tax is dedicated to facilities and operations for public safety entities. So that is the funding source being used to repay the debt service on this 5 million. And also it will pay the additional funds to for police to pay IPL for that building. So the utility isn't paying for a justice center. We did have a formal appraisal of the IUC done, and it came back at 5 million for the building itself, and then there was an additional cost associated. 1.9 million was the additional cost for the property adjacent that's currently greenfield. If the campus when and if the campus is realized at full build out, then that repayment would also have to happen to IPL. That total is 5 million. It's going to be paid out as a line item in the budget, 300,000 a year for 20 years. It is also going to be seen in the budget book in the marijuana sales tax fund. So 2 pieces there, and just because it says 5 million in this slide, that was the construction alone. Again, they do have to also purchase that building. The fire stations are being funded, again, 45 million of the 50 that we took in revenue bonds is going straight to the fire stations, and that debt service is being paid by the fire safety sales tax. As all of you know, half of that sales tax money is to go toward was hiring personnel and for personnel operations and new personnel operations, and then the other half was for facilities and equipment. So the facilities and equipment half is what's being dedicated, well, half of that half is being dedicated to pay the debt service on the 3 fire stations.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have further questions? Please.
Thank you, Mayor. Don't have a question, but just a comment. There's just a lot of work taking place. We have a lot of facilities that are old, and they're just old. And to be a part of a city that's old, a lot of our buildings are just old. A good example is where our municipal services, where they have our trucks at and stuff like that. That's 100 years old for...
Almost. It was built in 1934.
1934, so we're pushing 100. So a lot of exciting things taking place for our PD, fire department, and city staff to work in places that are better for them. So
absolutely. And just random fact, our finance director did run some numbers about what this would cost had we not issued the revenue bonds. How long would it take us to do these same stations? And the answer came out to roughly 30 years to build these 3 stations if we didn't have that dedicated funding source and go ahead and issue the revenue bonds, which is similar, since you mentioned it. We have that concept for the Massman. It's in the budget book as the Spring Branch Complex. That's something I hope to be bringing forward, and probably another scenario where we'll come asking about revenue bonds, because again, just the escalation that we continue to see, and you guys can correct me, it's still 1.5% a quarter, unfortunately, that we're seeing. So for instance, we started conversations about the consolidated facility for municipal services when the number was roughly $16 million to construct it, and that number is now up to around 42. So as you can imagine, continuing to wait when you have a dedicated funding source to pay the debt service responsibly isn't paying. So, and we do have money set aside to bring that one, to get that one started.
what did you say the escalator was quarterly?
1.5% a quarter.
1.5%. I just heard the half. I didn't hear the one. So
No, unfortunately, 1.5.
thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Further questions? No further questions on this topic? Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the average person who doesn't know what a lease purchase agreement is, can you just outline that briefly? I understand that each one of the departments pays in their rent for being in the municipal commons, and that is part of how we pay back
Yes,
the
so
debt.
it's effectively, you can think of it in similar terms to a mortgage. It is a 20-year lease on the building. The terms of the lease were that the city had to be the occupant. We had initially talked about potentially subleasing part of the space, and there were lots of conversations around whether that could or couldn't happen. In the end, it had to be 10% or less of another occupant being in there, which didn't make sense operationally. But yes, to your point, when you talk about funding, that was done through the general fund, but there is a formula that has been determined based on occupancy in the building that is used to determine how much each fund pays back toward that debt service. So in municipal commons, we have parks, we have water, we have power and light, sanitary sewer, stormwater, general fund, all those funds contributing to that debt service based on their occupancy percentage of the building.
And we've, in that building, combined the operations for 9 separate departments. Is that?
Yes, we have we have community development, all 3 utilities. We have parks, and we have city manager's office and council. Yeah, we've consolidated all of those there. We also have an actual reception area to greet the people that are members of our public that are coming in and actually help direct traffic. We hope to have that person starting in the next couple of weeks, as the first floor is fully occupied as well, soon, about the same time frame. So we can help with just wayfinding and trying to make life easier for people that are coming to do business with the city.
And I know that you'll be able to pay your utility bill there, but we're leaving the kiosk at the old utility center, so the people for whom that was convenient, it will remain functional there.
That one stays. There are 2 kiosks now at the Commons that will be operational in the next couple weeks as well, as was mentioned, as customer service transitions over to that facility. And then ultimately, it's planned to have one either at what's currently the PD facility or Truman Memorial, or potentially both, to allow people to come that would used to drop them off at either community development's counter or what have you, still bring them to the square and be able to make those payments.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, please.
One more thing. As we're talking and we're really close on vacating this building, court and youth court, how is that going? I know I've met with Judge Helm on one occasion to discuss possible stuff. I know you've been working with the court administrator and working with PD. We've had everybody in here taking a look to see where the best use and highest best use temporarily is. How is that going?
It's going really well. Everything's still tracking on schedule for mid to late March for moving court out of this facility and into across the street in that multi-purpose building. We have a little bit of modification to do for just the entrance for the judge to have a separate entrance to enter the room, and can start working on that within probably the next couple weeks. The first domino that has to fall for all of that to work, though, is customer service vacating the IUC and moving to the Commons, because that allows records to leave PD and go to the Justice Center, which then allows the court staff to go into where records is going. Another piece of that we need to finalize is wayfinding signage, just so we can clarify what pieces court, what pieces still PD that will still be in that building, and dedicating that space for youth court. And we've actually discussed at our last meeting just getting the most current building plan that we have, and we're to the point of, okay, we need to start putting those names on offices so we can make sure everyone's counted for, and start having those conversations with the bigger groups to say, okay, this is going to be your space, and start that conversation. But yes, we have been working with the court administrator. PD has also been in attendance at those meetings so they can work together in this transition.
You've had those conversations to make sure that all the legalities are in the proper places per the legalities with the state Supreme Court, reviewing that, making sure that this facility can work well, and we're getting all of that taken care of.
Yes, we actually had both the presiding county judge tour the facility, and the state court came out and take a look as well. The only concern really was bathroom capacity, and we vetted that as being sufficient through community development, and our building official verified that was acceptable. So we are moving forward.
Great. Well, thank you for doing that. I know that was one of the key pieces that we had here when we wanted to do the correct thing with our court to keep it moving and functioning, that this is a temporary spot until we get a fuller build out on a full justice center. So those conversations have been had with our judge. So we're looking forward to see how this can work in the future for a full justice build out. Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else have further comments on this topic? Okay. But wait, we're not done. We've got boards and commissions report.
A recommendation has been made to appoint Stacy Carlson and reappoint Alex Gonzalez to the Industrial Development Authority. A recommendation has been made to reappoint Mara Bradford to the Human Relations Committee. A recommendation has been made to reappoint John Rudy and Larry Legler to the Advisory Board of Health. A recommendation has been made to reappoint R. Scott Smith to the Stormwater Control Oversight Committee. A recommendation has been made to appoint Steve Ward to the Public Utilities Advisory Board. A recommendation has been made to appoint Diane Peppernick to the Sustainability Commission. And a recommendation has been made to reappoint Bud Perrin, Christina Lakey, and Herbert Bankston to the Housing Authority. Staff requests direction to add resolutions to the next regular meeting, reappointing these individuals to those boards.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Further comments? Very good with that. Do you have anything else?
I just had one real quick thing. I just wanted to remind everybody that all of the materials from this evening's discussion about the data center are attached to the agenda online, and also this meeting and the December 8th meeting are both available on YouTube channel, and the documents are attached to the agenda. So just for reference, if anybody wants to point people there for information later, those are always available for reference. So that's all.
Very good. Thank you very much. With that, we'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.